Welcome to the English with Kirsty podcast from www.englishwithkirsty.com. Here I'll be sharing with you tips, information and other learning resources so that you can improve your business English. Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of the English with Kirsty podcast. And I'd like to start with a bit of feedback. We've had 2 pieces of feedback this week, so I'd like to go through those first. Tanya said, "Thank you so much for providing your nice podcasts, Kirsty. I really like listening to them. Keep on with your nice work." So that's great. Thank you, Tanya. And thank you for the feedback. And if anyone else has some feedback, it would be good to hear from you too. So the second bit we got was somebody called Thomas, a new listener, and he said that the podcast was too quiet, so I'm going to try and fix that this week, and I'm sorry if anyone else has had this problem. Hopefully the volume of the podcast will be better now because I have changed what I've done in terms of producing it, so hopefully you won't have to turn your devices up in order to be able to hear me. Okay, so that's the end of the feedback. And as I said, if anyone would like to get in touch with me with feedback, you can do so on the show notes page, which this week is http://englishwithkirsty.com/podcast/episode 40. And if you don't want to do that, you can also send me an email at kirsty@englishwithkirsty.com and make sure that you spell my name Kirsty, otherwise it won't get to me because I'm not Kirsty. Okay, so this week we're looking at how to learn a language in your lunch break. So how to use the time that you have for learning languages, because I read a lot of things about people saying, oh, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to learn languages, and that's great for them, but the one time that I tried to do it was a disaster. I just hate early mornings. If I have to go somewhere, like if I need to be up early for a flight, I can do it, but I wouldn't choose to do it regularly. It's just not my time of day, and I'm much better. I'm more awake during the night, so I can keep awake and keep focused well into the night. But sometimes when you're really busy, you haven't got time to do that either. So this was a problem that I had, particularly when I was working for in my last job, because I was traveling 3 hours each day, and by the time I got home, I was pretty exhausted, so I didn't really want to stay up late learning languages, but I did want to make it part of my daily routine. So I developed ways to use my lunch breaks, to use my journey to work, and other free time that I had to do activities that helped with my language learning. And that's what we're going to look at today. This was originally an article that I wrote for the Fluent Language blog, guest article, so if you want to have a look at that, I will also include the link to it on the show notes page, which again you can find at www.englishwithkirsty.com/podcast/episode 40. Okay, so there are 6 things that you can do. Well, there are more, but there are 6 things that I'm going to talk about that you can do. So the first one is take your phone with you. And use your phone for language learning, because most people are never far from their phones, and the phone doesn't take up any more space in your bag like a big book or something like that. So you can use your phone for language learning, and I'm not going to list a load of language learning apps, mainly because I don't really use them, so I'm not the best person to talk about them, but you can find plenty of reviews of language learning apps online if you just do a search for them. But I used a lot of the native apps for language learning as well. So, for example, the podcast app for listening to podcasts in the languages I want to learn, Facebook, Twitter, the Audible app. So download audiobooks and listen to them on the Audible app. What else do I use? Things like radio apps, so you can listen to radios from the country where the language that you want to learn is spoken. Okay, that only works if you have if you have free Wi-Fi, and I understand that not everybody has free Wi-Fi everywhere they go, and So that would be a problem. So some of these things you can't do unless you have Wi-Fi, but other things like, I don't know, Facebook and Twitter, they don't use much data unless you're watching streaming videos all the time. So yeah, take your phone with you, and even for reading articles, that kind of thing, you can do that on your phone. So the second thing is go for a walk, because I used to often stay at my desk and I didn't get any fresh air, and it wasn't that good for me because I sometimes was tempted to work through. But if I made a decision to go for a walk at lunchtime, then it got me out of my office, away from my desk, and it was actually better for me because I could come back with a fresh perspective and start my work again. But I think it is good to get some exercise, and to, particularly on a nice day, to go for a walk somewhere. And I used to often take my book and read in a local park, and particularly during the summer, because it was nice to get out and just read somewhere quietly. So that can be a language learning book, or any book, to be honest. But if you want to read your book that will help you with your language learning, you can do that. I know some people like to listen to things like audiobooks and podcasts when they're walking around. I don't, but that's another option. Or if people want to just have a look at their vocabulary, they can do that as well. But sometimes just getting out and getting away from your desk is really good for you anyway, and if you can use that time for language learning, then it's even better. So number 3, are there any language tandem partners nearby? So this was generally something I did in the evenings rather than at lunchtime, but a couple of times I did manage to meet up with people who were in the local area, people that I'd been speaking to online who I knew were coming to London. And admittedly, it is easier if you're in London or in a bigger city to find people on local forums. And I remember she came for a work placement in London, not far from where I was working. So we arranged to meet up and have coffee together, and that was like a language exchange. So sometimes we spoke English, sometimes we spoke German, and then that developed into other things like meeting up at the weekends and doing activities together. But originally that was just having a coffee at lunchtime and having a chat. So you may be able to find people that want to learn your language and who speak the language you want to learn, and you may be able to arrange something with them during the lunchtime if you know that your evenings are really busy and you have other responsibilities. Number 4, find a good book. And when people are looking for things to read, make sure that the level is right for you, because if it's too hard, it's going to be a chore and you're not going to want to read it. If it's too easy, well, that might be fun, but you won't really learn very much. So make sure it's something that's at the appropriate level for you, and also something that's interesting, because there's no point reading something that you find boring, that you would never pick up in your own language. So find something that's really suited to you and your tastes. And it doesn't matter how you consume that information, whether it's on a Kindle, whether it's an audiobook, whether you want a physical book to carry around with you. You need to decide what works best for you. But if you do have room in your bag, then slip a book in, because you may be waiting around and be able to read for 10-15 minutes. Then that's better than just waiting in a queue somewhere, or if someone's late for an appointment, or if the bus is late. So have the book with you, and then you have an option. If you want to read it, you can. And number 5 is improve your vocabulary. So everyone's got different ways of doing this, whether it's a notebook, flashcards, an app. I have everything on spreadsheets. But however you do it, if you can have that with you and have access to it throughout the day, then if you've got spare 10 minutes, you can use them for learning a few new words or revising some words that you want to learn. And finally, you could even have a lesson, because some of my customers, if they're working from home, they sometimes have a lesson in what would be their lunch break. Or when I've been having face-to-face lessons, I've gone to a cafe with my teacher and we had lunch together. So that was the speaking part of the lesson, and then we did the written work afterwards. But it is possible to fit a lesson in if you don't have a really rushed lunch. If you have time, then it's also possible to fit in a lesson, because I've done it. So I hope those tips are useful. Hope there's something in there that you can use to help with your language learning. And if you want some more ideas, there's always my book, Feel Confident About Using Your Business English. So if you're interested in that, I will also, well, the links will be on the show notes page, so you can click through if you want to find out more about that. So I hope that was useful, and I will be back again next week. Have a good week and have fun learning English. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the English with Kirsty podcast. If you have any questions or comments, my email address is kirsty@englishwithkirsty.com, or you can go to www.englishwithkirsty.com/podcast, where you'll find information about the individual episodes.